Are the Orioles proving that they're legit contenders this season, or is there still something missing? The Baltimore Orioles went from one of the worst teams in MLB to finishing last season with an 83-79 record, 3 games back of the final wildcard spot. After years of finishing near the bottom of the league, the Orioles had built up a stockpile of top 100 prospects that had made their way up to the major league roster, and these guys were a big reason why they improved so much last year. But with any team that's led by their young players like this, there's still going to be inexperience in the learning curve that they're going to have to get over. So expectations entering this season were that the Orioles were maybe still a year or so away from seriously competing, especially in this loaded AL East. But the Orioles again have exceeded expectations and started 2023 going 35-21, currently 3rd place, not just in the AL East, but in all of baseball. So this team broke out last season and nearly made the playoffs, and now they're starting this season even better than they did last year. So they're definitely a contender now, right? I mean, especially since they just signed Aaron Hicks, so he can kick off the villain arc of the century and just stick it to Yankees fans. Well, if we're gonna answer this, then first, we have to know what the Orioles are doing really well that's been the main reason why they've been so successful. The Orioles have had a top 10 offense so far this year, and let me know where you would rank them, but currently they're 7th in runs scored, 9th in WRC+, and 10th in OPS. And especially where they've shined has been with something that usually takes young hitters a little time to figure out. All of the strategy and mental game that goes into approaching an at-bat can be pretty tough to figure out. And especially when as a young, promising hitter, you've just been so much better than most of the pitching that you've faced up to this point, you've probably gotten away with a lot of things that you really shouldn't have. And now when you're having to face the best pitchers in the world day in and day out, they're not gonna let you get away with that same stuff. Like I've talked about before, there are pitches that as a hitter, you just can't do very much with on a consistent basis. And all of these guys that are at or approaching the major league level have really good swings when they're in BP or in the cages. So oftentimes, I'd argue that it comes down to a hitter's decision making at the plate that's gonna separate whether they can make it at the major league level or not. And if you have a different reason why, I'd love to hear it. I wanna hear everyone's thoughts on this. And with the 5th youngest lineup in baseball to start this year, the Orioles have been really good at how they're approaching their at-bats. Currently 4th in walk percentage, 8th in strikeout percentage, and 4th in walks per strikeout. This is a great sign to see such a young lineup be so disciplined at the plate already, and I'd argue that it's a big reason why they've been hitting the ball as well as they have been. A more disciplined approach usually means that you're giving yourself better opportunities going after more hittable pitches, and the Orioles hitters have taken full advantage of when they've gone after these very hittable pitches, currently with the 6th best exit velo at the 2nd highest launch angle, and they've minimized their bad contact with the 3rd lowest soft contact percentage. So the Orioles lineup has been putting together really good at bats so far, either being totally fine with just taking their walks when they're there, or when they get those mistakes, they're putting really good swings on them, and I'd say that's a pretty good way to hit if you ask me. And leading this lineup has been the big piece of their rebuild and the face of their franchise, catcher Adley Rutschman, who's hitting .289, .411, .443 for an .853 OPS with 8 home runs, a .140 WRC+, and 1.8 FWAR in 55 games. And Rutschman has been a great example so far of how this lineup has been approaching at-bats really well, with him both walking and striking out about twice as good as the league average so far in only his 2nd season at age 25. But you also have outfielders Anthony Santander, who's got an .857 OPS, 136 WRC+, and 1 FWAR in 52 games, Austin Hayes with an .859 OPS, 136 WRC+, and 1.1 FWAR in 50 games, and Cedric Mullins with an .835 OPS, 132 WRC+, and 1.8 FWAR in 53 games. And this lineup has the top prospect in all of baseball entering this season in Gunnar Henderson, but Cedric Mullins did just go on the IL with a groin strain, and even with this lineup at full strength, no team is going to be great with just offense, and this is where we start to get into what the Orioles have struggled with so far. The Orioles starting rotation has been this team's biggest weakness so far, ranking 21st in ERA and FIP and 25th in FWAR. The main problem that their starters have faced so far is that they've just been getting rocked, not just for base hits where they've been 25th in average allowed, but also giving up bombs where they've been 24th in homers per 9. Now they're actually doing about average in terms of strikeouts and walks and locating their pitches, so it's not that their starters are making a bunch of mistakes and throwing a lot of hittable pitches. Their main problem has been that they're letting hitters get ahead early in the counts, and that's where it's coming back to bite them. Orioles starters are 27th in first pitch strike percentage, which means they're one of the worst rotations in baseball at letting hitters start counts 1-0, where they can sit back more and look for something to drive, versus 0-1, where they have to be a bit more defensive. And with all of these 1-0 counts, hitters are teeing off against them, with Orioles starters ranking 28th in barrel percentage, 29th in exit velo, and dead last in hard hit percentage. This is clearly where the Orioles need to find some answers, but unfortunately for them, out of all of the top 100 prospects that they've had since 2017, only 2 of them have been pitchers, DL Hall and Grayson Rodriguez. DL Hall made his debut last season and still hasn't found his footing at the major league level yet, pitching in only 11 games last year, mostly out of the bullpen, with a 5.93 ERA but a 1.65 FIP, and he's only pitched in 1 game so far this year, spending most of his time at AAA. And Grayson Rodriguez was one of the top prospects in baseball to start this year, but his debut has not gone well, to say the least, with a 7.35 ERA and a 5.93 FIP through 45 1/3 innings in 10 starts. Rodriguez has really good stuff, but where he struggled is with his command, walking 10% of the batters that he's faced and throwing a lot of mistakes that have turned into 2.58 homers per 9. So the Orioles were forced to send him back down to AAA to work on this stuff. With neither one of their top prospects figuring it out, they've still had Tyler Wells, Kyle Bradish, and Kyle Gibson put up ERAs under 3.9. But this team is still very clearly lacking that top of the rotation kind of a guy. Now they have some good arms out in the pen. Danny Coulomb has a 2.18 ERA and a 2.85 FIP. Their closer Felix Bautista has a 1.33 ERA with a 2.14 FIP, and Yennier Cano has been even better so far with a 0.93 ERA and 1.42 FIP, which makes it that much more important, if that's even English, that this team goes out and gets a real frontline starter to be at the top of this rotation and round out this roster. Now, it's still pretty early on for both Hall and Rodriguez, so I wouldn't really give up on either of them quite yet. But this team is also in a prime position to go out and get one of the top arms on the trade market, with 8 top 100 prospects right now, including Hall, and the rest of this roster is pretty set. The rest of their top 100 prospects they've been bringing up have all been position players, and they have plenty of depth on that side of the ball. They've got some solid arms in the rotation that can be more depth pieces at the back end, and you have some pretty quality arms coming out of the bullpen. So should the Orioles wait it out and see whether Rodriguez or Hall can develop into one of these high-end starters, or should they use the prospect capital that they have to go out and make a big move on the trade market this summer? Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. The Orioles are in almost a perfect position here, where you have a young, talented team that's doing really well and a surplus of talent that you can use to fill some of the needs that you have on this roster. This has got to be a really exciting time for Orioles fans. Now look, I tried to come up with some clever way to tie these 2 videos together and everything, but at this point, brain no think, so screw it. If you like this video, check out this one next on how Bo Bichette is hitting literally everything. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the page, not only to help us grow, but you get to see more baseball content like this every Wednesday and Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day. I'll see you later.